I'm Catherine Barrett, Senior Advisor to Route 50. I'm glad to be joining the final installment of this year's Follow the Money series to explore how federal funding, particularly from the American Rescue Plan, is impacting the state and local government workforce. Today, I'm joined by Alex Smith, Chief Human Resources Officer for the City of Memphis, to discuss the impact these federal dollars have had on recruiting and retaining talent in Memphis. And I just want to add, I've had many opportunities over the recent years to talk with Alex about the human resource issues faced by Memphis and the insightful approach she has repeatedly taken to build and sustain that city's workforce. And Alex, thank you for being here today. And I wanted to just start by, if you could sort of sum up a little bit, what are the big problems you're facing in terms of the public sector workforce of the city right now?
Excellent. Well, thank you, Catherine, for having me here. It's a pleasure to share more about the city of Memphis and to speak with you and your audience. So here in the city of Memphis, we're faced with the Great Resignation as any other employer during this time. So we literally saw our resignation rate go up by 40% year over year between 2020 and 2021. And what we've seen driving that essentially is particularly related to people looking for new opportunities, whether it's to go to another agency or to start a brand new career, or even family challenges as well. And this has particularly impacted police and fire, as well as our dispatchers. And so it's been a very all hands on deck effort, really, to look at how we can both recruit more talent into the city of Memphis and retain talent, particularly in the police and fire areas.
And so just thinking about the impact of additional dollars, how much will do more resources help to solve your problems?
So we certainly see a connection between the number of officers you have in crime in particular, and our city, as other cities, have seen an increase in our crime rate, particularly property theft as of late. And last year it was related to homicides. So having more officers on the street, having more dispatchers to be able to route those calls, very important in terms of keeping the city safe and keeping things focused. And so for us, using the ARPA dollars or the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, it was really important to target that towards public safety. And so we saw it as an opportunity to ramp up our efforts with recruiting and retention. In particular, focus on recruiting. We had sign-on bonuses, relocation assistance, and more support with our recruiting team to help in driving more hiring efforts for both police and fire.
And how much did you find the ARPA dollars available for that kind of help?
So we allocated $13 million over 3 years to this.
Wow.
In particular, focused around the relocation and sign-on bonuses. So for police, we have a $15,000 sign-on bonus, as well as $10,000 relocation bonus that we are offering. And for fire, a $5,000 relocation bonus and $5,000 sign-on bonus as well. So both of those initiatives really to help us not only compete, but be effective in bringing talent to the city of Memphis.
Yeah, those are large bonuses, and the relocation dollars feels like something most cities have not done in the past. Do you know whether Memphis has it had a sign-on bonus before?
Yeah, so we initially had a sign-on bonus earlier in 2021 that was city funded. So it's something that we experimented with, but before 2021, we did not experiment with sign-on bonuses. So it is unique for us to go to this effort, but the labor market really pushed us. And of course, I think all of the employees around the country saw this interesting trend of even local fast food restaurants offering sign-on bonuses to get people to come work for them. And so we felt the need to compete by having a sign-on bonus in our market.
Have you been able to track how well that works for the sign-on bonus, of how much you're getting more people interested in those jobs that have been really hard to recruit for a while?
Well, it's a little bit hard to track in terms of how that's improving impressions. And the only reason why I say that is because we already had a pretty aggressive social media campaign and digital marketing campaign even before the sign-on bonuses. So it's a little bit hard to squeeze out. But I will say that we had over 160 firefighters and 180 officers that we've hired with the sign-on bonus. So from my standpoint, it's an effective tool to help us get people in the door. And we have a 4-year agreement that's tied to it. So we know that we at least are able to try to help improve retention of those individuals by having this program.
Does that mean that they have to stay for 4 years in order to keep all of the bonus or part of the bonus?
All of it, yeah. In order to be able to keep all of it, they will have to pay a portion of it back if they leave before 4 years. And so we have a kind of a graduated way in which you have to pay that money back. And
wow.
But it's been an effective tool for us.
And what about the relocation assistance? Are you seeing a lot of people coming from other states, or is it other places in Tennessee?
Yeah, so we have a national recruiting program, and we've seen it be effective, particularly for fire, where we've been able to recruit nationally in places like Ohio and Texas and California to be able to bring them onto the city of Memphis. And typically it's individuals where the cost of living is much higher where they are, or they're looking for a different type of career experience. And we're able to offer that because we're a major market that has a variety of different types of experiences that we can provide. So the relocation assistance has been helpful in that way. I will say we still haven't had a ton of takers. I will say we've had 57 fire recruits that have taken advantage of it, but only 3 police recruits that have taken advantage of it. So we're still definitely seeing much more of a relocation effort with fire than police.
Do you have any answers as to why that is?
Well, I think we call it post-certification, but the law enforcement requirements in the state of Tennessee may differ from other states. So just the lateral movement is harder. And then also it's just a very difficult time across our country to be in law enforcement. And so we just have to continue to work at it. But for fire, it's, I think, a little bit more universal and just seems to be a little bit easier.
And what has it helped you? Has the money from ARPA helped with your diversity efforts, trying, especially in police and maybe fire too, getting a broader spectrum of people involved in the forces?
So certainly it's helping us get interest from people who are not directly from Memphis, who are outside the area. I don't have the exact percentage, but it has allowed for us to bring in people that are outside of our county, if you will, to come into these roles. From a diversity standpoint, we have seen, particularly in the Hispanic Latinx community, an uptick in those interests in coming to the city of Memphis and us recruiting from other areas. So that is helpful, particularly for our fire department. But I will say Memphis is uniquely diverse. So our police department is 55% African-American. Our fire department is 43% or so African-American. And so it already has some natural kind of diversity there. But we want to have more, and particularly the Hispanic Latinx population.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but offhand, do you know the statistics for the city as a whole, how that compares to the percentage on the force?
So the city as a whole is 60% African American. From a women's standpoint, I believe it's close to 50% women as well. But
Wow.
in both our law enforcement and fire departments, we continue to work towards that, which I believe we're under 20% in both departments with our female representation. So we have a ways to go there, but both our chiefs are women. And we're uniquely, I think only us and maybe one other municipality have two women serving as the top cop and top fire chief at the same time. So we're uniquely suited to be able to make a proposition to get women to come into these public safety careers.
Very cool. Well, so how much have you talked with your counterparts in other cities, particularly in your region? I mean, they also are receiving federal funds and ARPA funds. Is there a bunch of competition now because other places are also doing the same thing that Memphis is doing with the sign-on bonuses and the relocation help?
Right. So we are seeing an increase in competition. In fact, there was an article that I was looking at recently where it seems like everybody has a sign-on bonus right now. And so it is, once again, the labor market is very, very competitive, and particularly in these areas that it is difficult to fill these positions. So we're definitely seeing that happening and talking with my counterparts as well. But, every city has their challenges in terms of how they're faced with their recovery from the pandemic and how they're placing those dollars. So, we have competition on one hand, and on the other hand, there are other needs that cities are looking to meet.
Are there any hitches to this federal money? Anything that makes it difficult to use, or any lessons learned about how it's been distributed, or the rules about it that could benefit everybody in the future?
Well, I know our legal team in particular really read and combed through the acts to make sure that we were using the money in compliance with it, because they were very, I think, specific about how they wanted it to be used for public safety purposes and where it could be used and how. And so we leaned on our city attorney's office to be able to help give us some guidance there on if you will, at the compliance on how to think about it. I would say, just like with any grant, you're making sure that you're compliant and you're reporting and you're tracking what you're doing with the money and the progress and the outcomes is always one of the extra kind of administrative components that you have to do with it. And so we're seeking to do that as well as we're doing the work of hiring as many people as we can.
Yeah, and does that does the burden of that reporting fall on you, on your office?
Yes, it does. So each division has their certain allocation, and so for the allocation that we have, we do have the burden of reporting, tracking, and reporting.
What about other areas of employment in the city outside of police and fire? Are you using any ARPA money to sustain other employment areas for public sector employees?
Yeah. So one area that and I would call it more of a workforce program than employment, but under our community affairs area, we're focused around opportunity youth and being able to help individuals between the ages of 16 and 24 who are not in school, not working, be able to have access to opportunities. And so that is a space where we have used ARPA money to help us in building out an opportunity program and being able to provide not only training, but all other types of wraparound services and support to these young individuals who are hard to employ and are, really need some additional support. So that program is really a great program that we're putting together. And I want to say we've had at least over 50 people that have participated so far in the program and continue to expand it.
And do you know how much money has gone into that?
That is a great question. I don't have that offhand, but I certainly can get those numbers for you.
Thanks, Alex. What about the future? all of these things that Memphis is doing now because the money is available from the federal government, and I guess it will be for a few more years, till 2026. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. What happens going forward? Do you see these kind of programs? Do you see the city able to sustain these kind of programs? And also, what kind of effect will it have on the workforce when the programs maybe go away?
It's a great question. So I would say that you have different interventions for different points of time for a reason. And so our hope is that in two more years, that we'll be in a very different position in terms of our workforce with police and fire, and we wouldn't need this type of intervention, or we may need a different type of intervention. And so we would look for either grant opportunities or how we could fund it internally at that time. So I think the goal is to really meet the outcome of hiring as efficiently and effectively as possible with the money that we have. And hopefully in 2 years, we'll be in a very different place, and the interventions that we need will look a little bit different.
Are there things that you have put in place to make sure that this is all, one-time money being spent? Is any of it being spent on salary increases or things that, you can't take away in the future?
Yeah, no, it's spent on particularly project costs and the sign-on bonuses, et cetera, things that are kind of point in time type efforts, even the kind of the support around different recruiting events, et cetera. It's related to kind of point in time type of expenses.
Is there anything more, and I think we don't have very much more time, but anything more you would have liked to have seen in terms of federal aid to the cities, to Memphis in particular, during this really challenging period, of not only the pandemic, but, everything else going on?
Well, I know that there was talk about doing more in the early childhood or daycare space. And so as a parent of 2 young children, I would have loved to see a little bit more there. That's on a personal note. But as an overall city, I think we are very, very pleased and thankful and grateful for what the federal government has provided us and allowing for us to help with public safety and being able to make a difference for our citizens. So we're doing our best to allocate the dollars in the best way that we can and working within the compliance framework.
Anything more that could have been done, do you think, on the diversity efforts? I think that's about my last question.
It's hard for me to say. I mean, once again, we are in a very unique labor market right now, where every HR leader that I'm talking to is really wrestling with this idea around this higher resignation rate and what to do there. So it's really hard for me to say that there's more that can be done. I think we're all really stretching ourselves to try to do what we can to hire as effectively and as equitably as we can.
Yeah, I mean, practically every state I talk to talk about the drop in applications generally, the turnover rate going up. Are you seeing that starting to descend now, or is this still, heading in bad directions?
Yeah, so I think we're seeing it shift and move in a more positive direction in terms of being able to garner more applications and interest. It's still, I would say, even keeled though. It's I haven't seen that true kind of breakaway point where we're starting to see that influx of applications as well as our resignation rate really slowing down as much as we would like. And I would say I'm still very concerned. I think the mayor would argue he's still very concerned about police and fire and seeing what else we can do to try to help on the resignation rate side.
Terrific. Well, Alex, I want to thank you again for taking the time to join me and share your perspectives with our audience. On behalf of Route 50, I'm Catherine Barrett, and everyone take care.